All right, let's now welcome SABC News correspondent in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, to also talk us through these latest developments. So, Sherwin, a very good afternoon and good to have you with us. So, basically, take us through what actually led to this major decision to actually expel our ambassador to the United States.
Well, it's been another news dump from the United States as it relates to South Africa very late on a Friday evening. It seems that any of Donald Trump's tweets or Marco Rubio's attacks against South Africa tend to come at the end of the week as we're sort of heading into the weekend. And so this tweet late on Friday afternoon from Secretary Rubio, essentially saying that South Africa's ambassador to the United States is no longer welcome in our country. Rasool is a race-baiting politician who hates America and hates the President of the United States. We have nothing to discuss with him, and so he is considered a persona non grata, essentially expelling the ambassador from the country, Alicia. This was then followed up by a tweet by a gentleman called Senator Jim Risch. He's the Senate Foreign Relations Chairman, so a very powerful position within the U.S. Senate. He said that he applauded the decision taken by Marco Rubio, calling for South Africa ambassador. He called South Africa's ambassador disgraceful, leveling claims of anti-American hate speech against Rasool. Suffice to say that he is not cut out for diplomacy. The words of Jim Risch, the Senate Foreign Relations Chair. We can also confirm the statement there from Ronald Lamola, the Minister of International Relations. Our understanding from our sources here in the United States is that they were on the cusp of a confirmed White House meeting, whether it was pertaining to directly with the president or the special envoys. We understand that a meeting was in the works and they were very close to or had already confirmed a date for that meeting. But of course, now the expulsion of Rasool creates a great deal of doubt as to whether those meetings will go ahead. It'll certainly, of course, be the intention of the South African government to move forward without Rasool here, and it will be very, very important for them to move quite quickly in terms of filling the void that might now be left by the expulsion of Ambassador Rasool. I have also just gotten off a call, Alicia, with the ambassador at the center of all of this, Rasool. We spoke generally off the record, but what he did say to me on the record was the following: I have been in tougher situations, and I am confident that we will survive this, and the country must not lose the momentum that we have been building. So I think he has taken stock of what has happened. He has been, of course, given 72 hours to leave the country. So that has now, I think, been digested. And so the big picture is here, how do we move forward now without Rasool in terms of the very broad, ambitious goals that South Africa seeks here in terms of a trade relationship with the United States, which at the end of the day is what this is all about. This is not just about good relations. They are very much, and this is not just about politically good relations. There are economic imperatives that are at play here in terms of South Africa's relationship with the United States, its vulnerable situation in terms of its inclusion in the future in the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. And so what you have been hearing now in the build-up to this momentous decision is that the South Africans were seeking to recalibrate their relationship, their economic relationship with the United States, understanding, of course, that AGOA might not be the future, that they might very well still be excluded from AGOA. And what does a bilateral relationship with the United States look like moving forward? That's where the South Africans were at. That's what they were working on. And then, of course, this speech to the Mapungubwe Institute dropped. And, you know, if you watch that speech, this discussion, this webinar that Rasool engaged in, Alicia, I mean, the first takeaway is that this should have been an off-the-record discussion. You know, often diplomats do off-the-record discussions and seminars of this nature. You know, you'll recall the WikiLeaks cable leaks a few years ago where you got unvarnished views of diplomats, right? It was quite explosive. And so one gets a sense that this should have been an off-the-record discussion where the ambassador was really sharing his thinking about what was going on politically in the United States, how that was being transported around the world. But unfortunately for him, this was a public discussion that was on the record, and it was picked up by the Breitbart conservative news website here in the United States. And as you and I both know now, the rest is history.
Absolutely. But I mean, so, Sherwin, I can't help but wonder how this, it sounds like a personal attack, right, on the inferences or references that were made by Rasool against the administration of Donald Trump, but now seemingly affecting the whole country. So I just want to know now, what is the official word on the ground from the Trump administration on the next process going forward now that we do not have a U.S. ambassador?
The only way we are able to choreograph next steps in terms of where we go from here will be via the Twitter handles or Truth Social handles of Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. You'll recall, Alicia, that there has not been the level of diplomatic engagement between South Africa and the United States, despite these two countries being strategic partners, right? Donald Trump tweeted, I think it was in early February, that bad things were going on in South Africa. You then saw the subsequent executive order freezing all foreign aid to South Africa. Of course, waivers were then received for PEPFAR and HIV treatment in South Africa, which we understand continues today. But there has been a ripple effect since, that first tweet or social media post by President Trump. And I can tell you, soon after Ibrahim Rasool was appointed ambassador here, or reappointed ambassador to the United States, there was an article on a publication called The Hill. And The Hill is a news website, covers politics on Capitol Hill. And the title of that story on the 29th of January was, quote, Biden quietly approved South Africa's pro-Hamas envoy. Trump should fire him. So that was soon after Ibrahim Rasool's appointment, a U.S. publication calling for him to be removed from that position. And so, there are obviously going to be questions about whether Ibrahim Rasool's acumen was perhaps the best appointment for South Africa. Certainly, that was the position of President Ramaphosa, but it wasn't universally well received here in the United States. And to what Rasool said in that webinar, right? I've got a transcript here of what some of the things that he said, and I'm going to quote here. I think what Donald Trump is launching is an assault on incumbency, those who are in power, by mobilizing a supremacism against the incumbency at home and abroad. So in terms of that, the supremacist assault on incumbency we see in the domestic politics of the USA, the MAGA movement of the Make America Great Again movement, as a response not simply to a supremacist instinct, but a very clear data that shows demographic shifts in the United States, in which the voting electorate in the USA is projected to become 48% white, and that the possibility of a minority majority is looming on the horizon. Those were the kinds of analytic points Rasool was making. Of course, they were quite, in a sense, critical of the United States. But again, this should have been an off-the-record discussion, a whole no-holds-barred discussion, where you get an unvarnished view of what the thinking is here. Sometimes, diplomats do that to institutions, and they talk to academics about really giving them a broad understanding, but you've got to have the rules set at the beginning that this should have been an off-the-record discussion. It was not meant for public consumption, but unfortunately those rules were not in place here.
Absolutely, Sherwin. The Minister of International Relations earlier on speaking to SABC News, saying that South Africa needed to engage behind closed doors with the United States and not on the X streets. Sherwin, thank you so much for your input this afternoon. That is SABC News correspondent out in New York, Sherwin Bryce-Pease.